Well, hello folks, let's go do the thing I've been putting off for nearly 20 episodes, aside from wondering how there is snow in here in the end. I have no idea what the other players have been doing. Oh good, and I get attacked by a legendary cannon right as I'm resummoning the dragon. Let's hope I understand how this room works that some other people on the server made. Hello everybody, I'm Arden. Welcome to another episode of All the Mods 8, and what was that mess all about? Well, today I want to get through the harder parts remaining for making the mycelial reactor, which used to be the rainbow generator from extra utils too. And to do that, well, we need to be able to get materials from a wither and from an ender dragon. They need to be renewable, which means I wanted to set up the hostile neural network machines for both of them. And as you can see, I now have basic models for both, and predictably, while I remembered to make the model for the ender dragon, I actually forgot to put it in the deep learner the first fight, so I had to actually fight it one extra time. But thankfully, it ended up not being too hard, because Apotheosis is broke, yo. It's super, super, super broke. Like, I upgraded my armor to netherite just for the purpose of upgrading to netherite, but like the extra bonuses on this are just beyond absurd. My armor's getting kind of beaten up, I need to repair it. But between that and my meat feeder, I was never in any danger whatsoever because this was constantly feeding me. That said, I did do one set of upgrades because I spent this whole pack basically without real ranged weapons. And I really wasn't certain what to do, so I did some digging because the real best weapons are basically either mystical agriculture, which, I mean, bees, or else silent gear, which requires actually progressing the pack, which I don't really ever intend to do because you need all the modium ore for that. So I did some digging and ended up going with the flux infused bow from Redstone Arsenal. It's not as broken as it was in 1.12, but it's still pretty excessively powerful. And thankfully I had a volley book, which increases the number of shots because that's not what it does in 1.19. That's what the crossbow does now. The empowered version of the bow currently, well, arrows go up, they don't come down. I can't kill myself with this bow when it's turned on. And then I also made the quiver, which causes it to do extra damage and gives it another battery. But I've never actually seen it pull power out of the quiver, so I don't actually know how this works or if it needs to be on offhand. I could never actually get it to pull power out, though, so I don't know if this is actually working in the fight or not. So that pretty much trivialized that, and then, you know, obviously people made a kill box for the wither a long time ago, and I just took advantage of that because y'all have seen me fight a wither in theory, and if you haven't, well, I mean, go watch Enigmatica 2 Expert. It's really not that interesting. So, yeah, those are all done now, and now I just need to go prop up another 2 machines and get their outputs going. That said, the one thing I need to be careful about is, you see that simulation cost of $25.60, and the wither, just the same. Compare that to, say, the pig, which is at superior and only costs $128. So these might actually be a significant power draw on my network. Thankfully, I've got a fairly large battery, and once I get the reactors going, it should be pretty trivial. So the first one we're going to make is the Halitosis Mycelial generator, which, as long as you make the supreme frame, is pretty easy to do, as long as you have access to the end, I suppose. So let's go crank that one out. And assuming you know what the word halitosis is, you know that this requires dragon's breath. And that's the only thing it takes. And thankfully, in this pack, we can fabricate it with ender dragon predictions, which actually gives a large amount per. So let me get all this set up and let's see if we can get this going. All right, so the bad news is I've got the simulation chamber up and running, and we seem to be at a negative power draw on this, so that's not great. But the sooner we start getting this going, it might be able to kick it back over, but I'm not convinced this will actually flip back over to positive. I'm going to have to watch this one pretty carefully, although it will eventually stop making the dragon's breath because we're going to fill up a drawer pretty quickly once it gets up to a usable state. That said, the usable state is questionable because it currently is at 14% and it started at 5%, so it's going to take a while to get there. But hey, we finally got some at least. Which, you know, means I can just get absolutely wrecked going back in here trying to hook this up. Because I move slow, I get exploded, and I just get constant damage done to me. But there we go. Now we have the halitosis generator going, and unfortunately it only generates 40 Fe a tick, but it lasts quite a while. So the chest should fill up pretty quickly with this one at least. That of course means the next one up is the Netherstar Mycelial generator, which just requires a bunch of wither skeleton skulls, which, well, that's not a problem. I've got that simulation chamber already set up. And then another star, which we got a bunch from the ones we killed, and then another Supreme Machine Frame. So this is all doable. On the upside, this one generates 4,000 a tick, so this might actually help us up with our problem. As long as I can generate enough in time, because that will also have to level up. I got the simulation chamber for the wither setup, and man, this hurts real bad. So we'll see how far we can get, and hopefully get them up to power surplus before we're done, but I'm not holding my breath. I may have to turn off some of them as we go, just to get my base repowered. Well, while waiting for the Dragon's Breath chest to fill up entirely, I decided to go ahead and finally get around to making my wireless crafting terminal. This thing right here. And I've shown this off how to do this before, and it's frankly not all that complicated. The recipe's not very difficult. The hitch that they don't explain is you need an ME security terminal along with a biometric card. You shift right click to link it to yourself, or right click on something else to link it to them. You put it in here down in this slot, and then you add the permissions you want to be able to give. Then you just take your terminal and pop it in there, and out it comes linked to you. In addition to that, I also added a couple of energy cards to increase the power to it. Probably completely unnecessary, but that's how we went. But now I can pretty much access this anywhere I want in my base. To do that, I also needed a wireless access point. You can add this anywhere you have cables, realistically. And I added 10 boosters to it, which increases the power usage, but also increases the range, and this covers, frankly, most of my base right now. There is still an infinity range booster, but it only works within the same dimension now, and it requires unobtainium, so I don't know when I'm going to get around to that, possibly never. There's also a quantum bridge card, which lets it link to a quantum bridge to gain power and basically infinite range, and this is, I think, closer to the actual infinity booster. But this requires setting up paired singularities, and I frankly have never set one of these up before. And I'm not sure what the use is other than going cross-dimensional, which I currently don't have a use for. Maybe I'll get around to it later, but seems unlikely. But things are kind of trucking along here. As you can see, this chest is now full, and well, that one's empty, but we do have a surplus, and it's going to be close to capping out pretty soon and filling up the drawer. So mostly we're just waiting for this to fill up. I may have to turn off the one for the Dragon's Breath again for a little bit to make sure that I have enough power for my base. But overall, I think so far we've done a pretty good job, and now we are through pretty much all of the hard parts and don't have a whole lot left to do to actually make the mycelial reactor. And we'll get to that in hopefully the near future, but we do have a couple other things we will need to accomplish first. Anyhow, if you found this interesting and entertaining, please consider like or subscribe if you're new. As always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.